Well, many thanks for joining us. This is Qtv News with me, Ansumana Esonyasi. First, the main local, international and sports news headlines. The Chief Justice of the Gambia on Monday presided over the official introduction of 5 new appointed judges to the Supreme and High Courts, as well as the new Judicial Secretary. Following reports that some private schools are forced to close due to financial constraints amidst the coronavirus pandemic, we went to find out what the situation is like after schools reopened. On Sunday, as Guineans headed to their presidential election, thousands of Guineans in the Gambia were out in what seemed a massive turnout to cast their votes. Dr. Adama Sala, a health expert, on Monday told the TRRC that medical practitioners who helped Jammeh in his so-called HIV and AIDS treatment program betrayed the profession. In international news, a German court has ruled that a Muslim man who refused to shake the hand of a woman should not receive German citizenship, thereby rejecting his application. The head of Sudan's ruling council has pledged full cooperation with the International Criminal Court, which issued an arrest warrant for ousted President Omar al-Bashir. And in sports, 30 coaches drawn from the first and second division clubs of the GFF National League on Monday commenced a 5-day capacity building course organized by the GFF and the Gambia Football Coaches Association. Well, for more on these and other stories coming up, do stay tuned. And now the local news in detail. The Chief Justice of the Gambia Monday presided over the official introduction of 5 new appointed judges to the Supreme and High Courts, as well as the new Judicial Secretary, at a ceremony held at the High Court in Banjul. More in this report. The appointment of these 5 judges have been lauded as a significant milestone in the history of the country's judiciary. In a colorful ceremony attended by the Attorney General and Justices of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice Hassan B. Jallow expressed his delight at the appointment of the newly elevated justices. He says the President has in the past 4 months made major appointments to the highest courts in the country, adding that this is the first time a 7-member panel of Supreme Court judges have been constituted, and all of them Gambians.
All of them bring to their respective positions years of proven professional competence, devotion to hard work, and a track record of integrity, as well as competence in the law. These are all important attributes of any occupant of judicial office, and we are convinced that their appointments and their elevations will usher in some significant progress in the discharge of the judiciary's functions, both on the bench.
Dr. A. Jallow, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, says the appointment of these new judges is a clear manifestation of the Borough Administration's unwavering commitment to further strengthen the country's judiciary, and conveyed his delight with the appointment of more female judges to the highest courts.
I reiterate that the Ministry of Justice under my leadership stands ready to partner with the judiciary to entrench our democratic gains by strengthening the rule of law and respect for judicial independence. We do not always agree with the decisions of the courts, especially where we are parties, but we will always respect these decisions and assist in the enforcement of the decisions through the relevant executive organs. Speaking earlier,
Salud Tal, President of the Gambia Bar Association, says the bar welcomes the Gambianization of the legal system and implored the newly appointed judges to remain steadfast and be guided by law in dispensing justice.
As judges, your independence and integrity is sacrosanct, and we respectfully enjoin you to uphold the dignity of your noble office without fear or favor.
The new judges are Justice Idrissa F. Mai, Judge of the Supreme Court, Justice Omar M. Jai as the President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Mamadou S. M. Jallow, Judge of the High Court, and Honorable Aissatou Jallow C., newly appointed Judicial Secretary. All took turns to express their appreciation at being elevated to the high echelons of the country's judiciary. The event was attended by their family and friends. Their appointments are expected to enhance access to justice and further strengthen the rule of law in the country. Ansumana Esonyasi for Qtv News. The closure of schools due to the coronavirus pandemic has had severe impacts on the education sector, and among the hardest hit are private schools across the country, whose source of income depend on tuition fees. QTV's Mohamed Lamin Choi went to find out following reports that some private schools are forced to close.
Schools throughout the country were last week reopened for grades 7 to 12 students, but the economic crisis brought by the coronavirus pandemic has massively hit the private schools across the country. The 6-month school closures deprive them of income to sustain their operations, and many will remain closed even after the official reopening of schools. One example is Al Madina School in Birkama. We are told that the school had terminated the services of its teaching staff since March because of financial constraints.
Since this coronavirus hit, they tell us that they cannot maintain services any longer. And then the bottom line is they have to terminate service of all teachers.
When exactly?
That was March. Yes, from March up to now.
That was when your services were terminated?
They were terminated. And salary has never been paid. So that is actually a problem, and most of the teachers are facing that financial difficulties, to be very honest.
The school has operated for at least 10 years, and it has a student population of over 500 from nursery to grade 9. On the date of the reopening of schools, parents were issued transfer referrals by the school administration to look for another school for their children. Both parents and the students were disappointed. This parent with his sons expressed their displeasure with the situation.
Parents like me, because of my son, is making me proud. He's coming first in Arabic side, first in English side. He loved the school, he loved the teachers, he loved the administration, he loved the friends. So all my concern is for the safety of the student to go back to school.
Attempts to speak to the school authorities on camera went unsuccessful. They, however, denied closing down because of financial difficulties, but claimed to remain closed for health safety reasons. But what this man told us seems to counter that claim.
It is today I've heard that the Red Cross came down here to fumigate the school, but they said the lady sent them away from one of the school admin.
More than 50% of our school system comprise private school, including madrasas, who mainly rely on tuition fees for operational cost. With schools shutting down, many students are likely to be referred to public schools whose capacities are already overstretched.
Requirements in terms of practicing social distance. Our conventional schools, mainstream, cannot even accommodate their students, so to speak. Much more if these schools are to wind up, and then the government, as the primary duty bearer, would have to absorb those students. They don't even have the required number of teachers also, so to speak. So what is looming in the distance without a swift central government intervention is academic crisis.
Support for private schools in financial crisis is not yet forthcoming from government. The PS of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education told QTV that he acknowledges the problems facing private schools in the country and that the ministry is interested in the education of all students.
The private schools have some challenges, and we have discussed with them. We do recognize their plight, and we do also have looked at how we could help. And if there is any way out, we will certainly help.
When schools are closed down, teachers lose their jobs, and a delayed students' transfer process could also mean the loss of more contact hours. The Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education has registered over 16,000 teachers for its over 700,000 students at its recognized schools around the country. And without any solution to the closure of private schools, that number may be reduced at a time when more teachers are needed for our education system. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
On Sunday, as Guinea-Conakry headed to its presidential election after heated campaigns at home, thousands of its nationals in the Gambia were out in what seemed to be a massive turnout to cast their votes. Election results from Sunday's vote in the Gambia saw the main opposition candidate Mamadou Sellou Dalen Jallow leading with a landslide. As QTV's Mahmoud Lamin Choi reports,
Over 700-kilometer distance away from home was not a barrier for the citizens of Guinea living in the Gambia. They turned out in numbers to vote in a heavily contested election back at home. Over 13,000 Guineans were registered to vote in the Gambia, making them among their country's 5.4 million registered voters in the 2020 presidential election. These voters traveled from across the country in early Sunday morning. 23 polling stations were established in Kanifing, Birkama and Banjul, and voting was done in a calm and peaceful atmosphere. Voters chose from 10 presidential hopefuls.
I would tell them to keep on behaving very well, when you are in a country, you should abide by the law of that country. So I ask them to abide by the Gambia laws, and I don't want them to be found in any criminal or bad behavior case.
Of the 13,785 registered voters, 11,800 cast their ballots. This is the election result sheet of voters in the Gambia, which shows Mamadou Selou Darlene Jallow, Guinea's main opposition candidate, polling 94.2% of the total votes cast. The incumbent, Alpha Conde, polled a measly 1.7%. I spoke to some of the voters of these polling stations, and they told me that they were out for both system and regime change in their country.
The people in Guinea are suffering. It is a difficult life in Guinea. We are tired of Conde's rule. After 10 years of his rule, he could not fulfill any of his campaign promises. So we want to give chance to another person and see if things will change better for us. It is not about tribe. It is the fact.
We want a government that will respect and recognize the human rights of all citizens without discrimination or tribalism. All of us are here to bring about that change because we have the power to change government peacefully. Both at home and abroad, Sunday's election, according to observers, has been peaceful throughout. But many fear that the country might plunge into post-election violence in the coming days should the losing candidate refuse to accept the official result. Security Minister Albert Damantang Camara, according to France 24, told AFP News that there had been no major incidents on Sunday, but that he was concerned about suggestions that Jallow would not accept the result. Though the final results are yet to be announced, the Security Minister had urged the main opposition candidate to, quote-unquote, return to his senses. Both Conde and his main challenger, Jallow, were seen on Sunday in their white dresses out to cast their votes. While Alpha Conde expressed his wish for a free, democratic and transparent election with no violence, Mr. Jallow called on his supporters to show restraint. Voting closed yesterday at 6 p.m. and it will take several days before the final results are announced. This is the second time Conde and Jallow have faced off in a tense election. The pre-election hustings were marked by violence and trading of bitter insults between the old rivals. Tribal rhetoric and tensions also flared up among their supporters. This has created clouds of fear over the post-election atmosphere. Mohamed Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
Dr. Adama Saleh, a health expert, on Monday told the TRRC that medical practitioners who helped Jammeh in his so-called HIV and AIDS treatment program betrayed the profession, calling the treatment bogus and misleading. Babukar C has the rest of that story.
Dr. Adama Saleh is the proprietor of Lamtoro Clinic, a private health facility. He gave an in-depth analysis of the work of the medical practitioners in the country and the medical council during the former regime and how they fell apart with Jammeh until in 2007 when he announced the treatment program. For him, the medical practitioners that helped Jammeh in his treatment program betrayed the rule of the profession.
The promise of a cure in the context of HIV remains elusive.
Suñ waxee ne nag mbiri wéral ci mbiri ni ñoo fajee doomi jàngoro HIV AIDS loolu moom wéeruwut fenn.
You can never totally eliminate the virus from the human body. You can reduce the viral load to a level where it's controllable or manageable. The patient will feel much better and live an active, productive life, but doesn't mean that the disease is cured.
Dr. Saleh joins other witnesses in describing the treatment program as fraudulent and bogus with no scientific proof. He cited an example when a HIV patient had to leave for the Jammeh's treatment but would later return, but it was too late to regain her health.
I am of the unqualified view that if she had continued with her heart, she would have continued to live a good and productive life. And who knows, she could even have been around with us today.
Dr. Saleh condemns Jammeh's decision to parade patients before the media, which brought them stigma and discrimination. He urged doctors to abide by the rules and regulations guiding the profession without fear or favor, affection or ill will. He concluded that there is no cure for HIV and AIDS, not until at the time of his testimony. Babu Karsi, QTV News.
And from that report, we take a short commercial break, but still to come is more local news and international. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is QTV News. The community of Fonyi Bintang over the weekend embarked on the rehabilitation of an 8-kilometer road that leads to the village from the highway. Ibrahim Balde reports.
It is a very sunny day in Fonyi Bintang. We are here to witness the rehabilitation of their 5-kilometer road which leads to the Bintang Bolong. It is very, very important. And of course, this road is 7 years old. And recently, it has been invaded by potholes, which makes it necessary for all the villages to come together and carry out this work in order to sustain this road. And of course, we will talk to some of the villagers on how they come about with this whole idea in order to make this thing possible.
Matthew Gomez, a youth leader and a native of Bintang, says the road rehabilitation is very important because lack of proper road network hinders development.
Okay, the reason why we come up with this idea, because we seem to understand, is the area where we live, understand? And we start having difficulty with the road, having access to our villages, understand? So that's the reason why we sit as a committee, we decide in order to come up with such a plan like this, whereby to maintenance the road with time, and then maybe we can get help from even a government or one of the philanthropic, and then see how best that will be making the development to be easier within this area.
The Alcalo of Bintang, Bakari Sise, speaks about the strategic importance of the road.
Roads are very crucial for development. That is why I came to be part of this exercise. We should not leave everything for the government to do, but we must play our part in national development.
Ibrahim Abiai is the Alcalo of Kasang village. He is delighted with the level of cooperation among the villages.
We think it is necessary to come together to work on this road. The road is in bad shape because of the heavy vehicle that use it. We are happy that all the nearby villagers came together to carry out this good initiative.
Yaya Samate, one of the managers at a lodge in Bintang, says maintaining the road is important because of the tourist attraction sites and also the free movement of goods and people.
It is important, but because among others, no country can develop without good road facilities. And as you can see, the Bintang Bolong stretch, 2 lodges are located here. So in essence, maintaining this road in good order would one way or the other play a rightful place in the development of tourism in the country. But more importantly, the people who live in this community also deserve that opportunity, moving up and down, both in terms of their agricultural product and also for their comfort.
Improving roads network is an important priority for communities. A poor road network often has an adverse effect on the livelihood of people as it leads to problems of access, especially during the rainy season. This in turn causes a decrease in agricultural production and also affects access to markets, healthcare, and educational facilities. Ibrahim Abalde, QTV News.
We will take another short commercial break, but when we return, we take a look at international and sports news. Well, thanks for staying with us. Over now to international news. A German court has ruled on Friday that a Muslim man who refused to shake the hand of a woman should not receive German citizenship, thereby rejecting his application. More in this report. The 39-year-old Lebanese national was on the brink of becoming a German after living in the country for 13 years, completing his medical studies and passing a citizenship test with the highest possible mark. The administrative court also ruled that someone who rejects a handshake due to a fundamentalist concept of culture and values because they see women as a danger of sexual temptation is thereby rejecting integration into German living conditions. However, the 39-year-old Lebanese doctor, an Irishman who came to Germany in 2002, said he refuses to shake women's hands for religious reasons. The woman therefore withheld the certificate and rejected the application. The man has claimed that he will not shake hands with men either. The judge found that the handshake also has a legal meaning in that it symbolizes the conclusion of a contract. The handshake is therefore deeply rooted in social, cultural and legal life which shapes the way we live together, the judge said. The court found that anyone who refuses to shake hands on gender-specific grounds is in breach of the equality enshrined in the German constitution. The handshake ruling was also handed down despite health officials cautioning against handshaking right now due to the coronavirus pandemic. The judge said he was convinced that the practice would survive the pandemic. The Muslim man can now appeal the decision to a federal administrative court due to the fundamental significance of the case. The Danish parliament passed legislation on Thursday making a handshake with an official mandatory at naturalization ceremonies. Starting in January 2021, Denmark will require a handshake at naturalization ceremonies. Billy Ose, a 61-year-old writer and translator who has lived in Denmark since 1981, recently submitted his citizenship application. In an opinion piece on one of Denmark's leading newspapers, he explained why he would refuse to shake hands. Billy Ose said, "I feel that you cannot impose respect by law. I feel that respect is something that arises in a democracy between people of equal status, equal rights, and is not something that can be demanded. If you demand respect of people, what you receive will not be respect but submissiveness." Ansmane Sonyasi for Qtv News. The head of Sudan's ruling council has pledged full cooperation with the International Criminal Court, which issued an arrest warrant for ousted President Omar al-Bashir for alleged war crimes and genocide in Darfur. Here is the report.
Following a meeting with a delegation from the ICC led by prosecutor Fatou Bomben Souda, Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok, the leader of Sudan's transitional government, pledged to cooperate with the International Criminal Court. The charges of genocide and crimes against humanity are in connection with the unrest in the western Darfur region in 2003. And other 4 Sudanese suspects are wanted by the ICC on charges related to atrocities in the Darfur region. Sudan's government and rebel groups in Darfur agree that all those wanted by the ICC should appear before the tribunal. The agreement is part of talks between Sudan's new government and rebels in Darfur and other neglected regions to try to broker a peace agreement after years of conflicts. The ICC delegation is also seeking information on 2 of al-Bashir's associates, Abdurrahim Mohamed Hussein and Ahmed Aharoun. Both men were detained after al-Bashir's overthrow. Al-Bashir reacted to an insurgency in Darfur against his regime by sending in the Janjaweed soldiers, which are accused of killing up to 300,000 people and driving as many as 2.5 million people from their homes. He is currently serving a 2-year prison sentence in Sudan on corruption charges and is currently on trial for the 1989 coup that brought him to power. Ex-Janjaweed commander Ali Kusheid has been in ICC custody since surrendering to authorities in the Central African Republic in June. He is facing charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity in Darfur, including several counts of murder, torture, looting and rape. Human Rights Watch warned that while they are meeting with Sudan authorities, we are very positive. It was early days yet, and these are just words, not actions. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
And now on to some sports news. 30 coaches drawn from the first and the second division clubs of the GFF National League on Monday commenced a 5-day capacity building course organized by the GFF and the Gambia Football Coaches Association at the National Technical Training Center in Yundum. Our sports reporter Moud Gajaga attended the opening ceremony and he now reports.
Preparations for the new GFF League season. Football is expected to resume in the Gambia in December to mark the beginning of the 2020-2021 league season. The COVID-19 pandemic has halted football for more than 6 months around many parts of the world, including the Gambia. Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, these coaches have to apply both tactics and safety guidelines to ensure their players are safe from the coronavirus.
It's important that we're coming back to our football, but not back to our normal lives. We still have COVID-19 around. It looks like COVID wants to be here for some time, but we also want to be here with football, and the best thing is to adhere to the regulations and work towards what is given as guidelines.
This is something very important, and we'll take good use of it, and we make sure that whatever we learn from here, when we go back to our club, we implement everything, and inshallah we will do so.
The training will focus on the following areas: COVID-19 and football, training during COVID-19, and evolution of tactics. Sang Dong, the technical director of the Gambia Football Federation, says although football will return, but the safety guidelines has to be followed.
It's not business as usual, and it's not going to be business as usual anymore, because we should first of all accept. Let's don't live in a wall of denial. It happens, it doesn't happen. There is COVID, there is no COVID. Let's all accept and write it boldly. COVID-19 exists. But also, on those same letters, let's write it that football also is here to stay. So how can we match these two? It's just like trying to connect a positive and a negative wire together. It will explode. But in this situation, I don't expect it to explode.
The GFF suspended the league in April this year after the government declared a state of public emergency. At the time, Real de Banjul were leading with halfway into the season before the decision was made by the GFF to declare the league null and void. Now that the league is set to resume in December, players and coaches must respect the Ministry of Health and the WHO guidelines. Mudu Gajaga, QTV News.
Well, before we end this bulletin of the news, here's a recap from main headlines. The Chief Justice of the Gambia on Monday presided over the official introduction of 5 new appointed judges to the Supreme and High Courts, as well as the new Judicial Secretary. Following reports that some private schools are forced to close due to financial constraints amidst the coronavirus pandemic, we went to find out what the situation is like after schools reopened. On Sunday, as Guinea headed to its presidential election, thousands of its nationals in the Gambia were out in what seemed a massive turnout to cast their votes. Dr. Adama Saleh, a health expert, on Monday told the TRRC that medical practitioners who helped Jammeh in his so-called HIV and AIDS treatment program betrayed the profession. In international news, a German court has ruled that a Muslim man who refused to shake the hand of a woman should not receive German citizenship, thereby rejecting his application. The head of Sudan's ruling council has pledged full cooperation with the International Criminal Court, which issued an arrest warrant for ousted President Omar al-Bashir. And in sports, 30 coaches drawn from the 1st and 2nd division clubs of the GFF National League on Monday commenced a 5-day capacity building course organized by the GFF and the Gambia Football Coaches Association. Well, I'm afraid that's all about it, but do join us at 10 p.m. for another bulletin. Bye for now.